Let me tell you a story about a woman who had everything and lost it all in a single night. But more than that, let me tell you how she found herself in the ruins of betrayal. Maya Chen woke up that morning like it was any other day. She stood in front of the mirror in her small New York apartment, smoothing down her navy blue dress. It was simple but elegant, the kind of dress that said, "I belong here. I've earned this." And she had earned it. For 5 years, Maya had poured her heart into her work at Sterling Marketing. Long nights. Endless presentations. Campaigns that brought in millions. She'd climbed every step of that corporate ladder with bleeding hands and tired eyes. And today, finally, it was official. Vice President of Marketing. Her name would be on the door. Her ideas would shape the company's future. She should have been glowing with pride. She should have been calling her family, celebrating with champagne even before the party. But as she stared at her reflection, all she felt was a hollow ache in her chest. Because standing behind her, sprawled across the bed with his tie loose and his eyes cold, was her husband, James. "So that's what you're wearing?" His voice cut through the morning air like a blade. "Figures. You finally get your little trophy job, and you show up looking like a school teacher." Maya's shoulders tensed. She didn't turn around. She'd learned long ago that eye contact only made things worse. "I think it looks professional," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. James snorted. It was a sound she'd heard 1,000 times, dripping with contempt. "Professional? No, sweetheart. Professional is what men look like in tailored suits. You just look like you're trying too hard. Like a little girl playing dress-up." The words landed like stones in her stomach. But Maya didn't respond. She reached for her earrings, simple pearls that had belonged to her grandmother, and fastened them with trembling fingers. "Can't we just be happy tonight?" she finally said, her voice breaking just slightly. "Please. This means a lot to me." That made him look up. James set his phone down and sat up slowly, his eyes narrowing as he studied her. Then he laughed. It was a cold, mocking sound that made her skin crawl. "Happy for you?" He stood and crossed the room until he was so close she could smell the whiskey on his breath. "Why would I be happy watching my wife parade around, acting like she's more important than me?" "Because we're supposed to be a team," Maya whispered. "A team?" His voice dropped low, dangerous. "No, Maya. Let's get this straight. I'm the man. I'm the one with the name, the family, the respect. You're just riding my coattails. Don't you ever forget that." You see, James Chen came from old money. The kind of family that had buildings named after them, charity galas in their honor. When Maya married him 7 years ago, she thought she was marrying a partner. Someone who would celebrate her dreams the way she celebrated his. But somewhere along the way, love had turned to poison. That evening, the banquet hall glittered like something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers threw golden light across white tablecloths. Colleagues laughed and clinked glasses. Someone had even ordered a cake with, "Congratulations VP Maya," written in elegant script. For a brief, shining moment, Maya let herself believe this was real. That she deserved this. That she'd finally made it. "Speech! Speech!" her coworkers chanted, raising their glasses. Maya smiled, her heart pounding as she stood. But before she could say a word, James appeared at her side. His arm wrapped around her waist, looking protective to everyone watching. But his fingers dug into her ribs so hard she had to fight not to wince. "Look at you," he whispered in her ear, his smile never faltering for the cameras. "So desperate to be the center of attention. Do you actually believe they respect you? They're laughing at you, Maya. Every single one of them." "James, stop," she murmured, trying to keep her smile in place. His grip tightened. "I'll stop when you learn your place." Then, as if nothing had happened, he pulled away and raised his glass high. "Ladies and gentlemen." His voice boomed across the hall, charming and warm. "To my beautiful wife, the star of the evening. Let's raise a glass to Maya Chen." The room erupted in applause. Glasses lifted. Cameras flashed. Maya raised her champagne flute, her hand trembling so badly she was afraid she'd drop it. And that's when she saw it. James leaned close again, his smile still fixed for the crowd. But his voice was like ice in her ear. "Promotion? Don't fool yourself, Maya. You'll never be more than a pathetic woman in my shadow. Drink up. It's the last toast you'll ever make." His hand moved so quickly she almost missed it. A slight shift. His fingers opening. Something small and white dissolving into the golden liquid in her glass. Time stopped. Maya's breath caught in her throat. Her heart hammered so hard she thought everyone in the room must hear it. She looked down at her champagne, watching the tiny ripples as whatever he'd dropped into it disappeared completely. He was going to kill her. Right here. In front of everyone. At her own celebration. The realization hit her like a physical blow. All those years of cruelty, all the belittling and the insults and the control, it had all been leading to this moment. He didn't just want to break her spirit anymore. He wanted her gone. To Maya Bennett, the host's voice rang out. Our new vice president of marketing. Everyone raised their glasses higher, waiting for her to drink first. It was tradition. The guest of honor always drank first. Maya's mind raced. Her hand shook. She looked at James, and he was watching her with that same cold smile, so certain he'd won. And in that split second, Maya made a choice. Her hand moved quickly, naturally, as if she were just adjusting her grip. But in the chaos of the moment, with everyone cheering and cameras flashing, she switched their glasses. His for hers. Hers for his. It happened so fast, so smoothly, that even James didn't notice. To Maya, the crowd cheered. They all drank. James lifted his glass, the one that had been hers, the one with the poison meant for her, and he drank deeply. His smile was triumphant. Victorious. But then something changed. His smile faltered. His eyes went wide. The color drained from his face like water from a broken dam. The glass slipped from his fingers. It shattered on the marble floor, the sound cutting through the applause like a gunshot. James, someone said. He clutched his throat, his mouth opening and closing like he couldn't breathe. His knees buckled. And then he fell. Chaos erupted. Screams filled the banquet hall. Chairs scraped back as people rushed forward. Someone shouted for a doctor. Someone else called 911. Maya stood frozen, her own glass still untouched in her hand. Everyone was looking at her now. The applause had died into horrified silence. She could see it in their eyes, the question forming before anyone dared to speak it aloud. Did she? One of her colleagues, a woman named Jennifer who'd always been kind to her, took a step back. Her face had gone pale. Maya, she whispered. What did you do? I didn't, Maya's voice cracked. I didn't do anything. But even as she said it, she could see the doubt spreading through the room like wildfire. James was on the ground, paramedics rushing in. And she was standing there, perfectly fine, with an untouched glass in her hand. The whispers started immediately. She didn't drink. Did you see her face? She looked so calm. I heard they were having problems. She was jealous of his family's money. She wanted him gone. Maya's legs felt like they might give out. This couldn't be happening. This was supposed to be her night. Her triumph. Her moment to finally prove she was more than just James Chen's wife. Instead, she watched as they loaded her husband onto a stretcher, as police officers entered the hall with notebooks and suspicious eyes, as everyone she worked with looked at her like she was a monster. And the worst part? The part that made her want to scream? She had saved her own life. She had switched those glasses because she knew what he had done. But how could she ever prove it? The hospital smelled like bleach and fear. Maya sat in the hard plastic chair outside James's room, her hands clasped so tightly her nails left crescent marks in her palms. She hadn't slept. Couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that moment. The glass slipping. James falling. The horror in everyone's eyes. She'd given her statement to the police 3 times already. Each time, they'd looked at her with more suspicion. Each time, their questions had grown sharper. Why didn't you drink? Were you and your husband having marital problems? Did you have a reason to want him dead? She'd told them the truth, that she'd seen something in her glass, that she'd been scared. But the way they looked at her, she knew they didn't believe her. The elevator doors opened, and Maya's heart sank. Patricia Chen stepped into the corridor like a queen entering her throne room. James's mother had always been a force of nature, tall and elegant with silver hair pulled back in a perfect bun and eyes that could cut through steel. She wore a black coat and carried herself with the kind of confidence that came from generations of wealth and power. Those eyes found Maya immediately. You, Patricia said, her voice cold enough to freeze blood. Maya stood up before she could think. Patricia, spare me. Patricia moved closer, her heels clicking on the tile floor like a countdown. You must be exhausted from acting so well. Playing the victim. The concerned wife. I'm not acting, Maya said, her voice breaking. I would never hurt James. I saw him. Saw him what? Patricia's eyes flashed. You're always so dramatic, aren't you? Always trying to make everything about you. Well, let me tell you something, Maya. This performance of yours? It makes you look even worse. Maya's mouth went dry. Please. He could have died. Patricia stepped so close Maya could smell her expensive perfume. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper, but every word landed like a blow. If anything happens to my son, I will make sure you pay. I will destroy you. I will take everything you have, everything you've ever worked for, and I will grind it into dust. Do you understand me? Before Maya could respond, Patricia's hand flashed out. The slap echoed in the quiet corridor. Maya's head snapped to the side, her cheek exploding in pain. She tasted blood where her teeth had cut the inside of her mouth. For a moment, she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stand there with her hand pressed to her burning face. You, Patricia said again, her voice shaking with rage, have shamed this family for the last time. A nurse coming out of James's room looked away quickly, pretending she hadn't seen anything. Nobody was going to help her. Nobody was going to stand up for her. Patricia turned and walked away, her back straight, her head high, as if she'd done nothing more than swat a fly. Maya stood there, trembling, her cheek still stinging from the slap. But worse than the physical pain was the realization washing over her. She was alone. Completely, utterly alone. That night, Maya's phone rang. She saw her sister's name and answered so fast she almost dropped it. Rachel, she breathed. Thank God. I need Maya. Rachel's voice was tight, careful. I saw the news. Is James okay? He's stable. They think he'll recover. But Rachel, you have to believe me, I didn't do this. He tried to. Please tell me you didn't do anything. Rachel cut her off, the words tumbling out fast and desperate. Please, Maya. Just tell me you're innocent. Something in her sister's tone made Maya's chest tighten. Of course I'm innocent. Rachel, you know me. I would never. But people are talking, Rachel interrupted. They said you didn't drink. They said you looked calm while he was dying. Maya, you have to understand how this looks. How this looks. Maya repeated, her voice rising. Rachel, I'm your sister. I know. Rachel's voice cracked. I know, and I want to believe you. I do. But Mom called. She saw the headlines. People are asking questions. And I can't get involved if there's even a chance. A chance of what? Maya demanded. That I'm a murderer? Is that what you think of me? Silence stretched across the line. Long and terrible. Rachel? Maya whispered. Please. I'm sorry, Rachel said, and the line went dead. Maya stared at the phone in her hand. Her sister. Her only living family besides her parents who had retired to Florida and never really understood her life in New York. Rachel, who she'd shared a bedroom with growing up, who she'd told all her secrets to, who she'd helped through her divorce last year. Rachel didn't believe her. Nobody believed her. Maya set the phone down slowly and looked around her apartment. It was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made her feel like she was drowning. Tomorrow she had to go back to work. Face her colleagues. Face their whispers and their suspicious stares. Face a world that had already decided she was guilty. But tonight, sitting alone in the dark with her sister's rejection still ringing in her ears and her mother-in-law's slap still burning on her cheek, Maya made a decision. If nobody was going to believe her, then she would have to prove them wrong. She would have to find evidence. Real evidence. Something so undeniable that even Patricia Chen couldn't ignore it. Maya opened her laptop, her hands shaking but determined. James's computer was in his study. He always kept it locked, password protected. But Maya knew things about her husband. She'd paid attention even when he thought she wasn't looking. She knew his passwords. His hiding places. His secrets. And if he had tried to kill her, there would be evidence. There had to be. Maya stood up, her jaw set with new determination. The world thought she was a murderer. Her husband had tried to poison her. Her family had abandoned her. But Maya Chen was not going to go down without a fight. The night was just beginning. And so was her search for the truth. Sometimes the worst prisons aren't made of bars and concrete. Sometimes they're made of whispers and suspicion and the way people look at you when they think you're a monster. Maya learned this the hard way. The next morning, she walked into Sterling Marketing with her head high and her heart in her throat. She'd barely slept, spending most of the night going through James's things, looking for anything that might prove what he'd done. She hadn't found it yet, but she knew it was there. It had to be. The office fell silent the moment she stepped through the door. Conversations died mid-sentence. Coffee cups froze halfway to lips. Her colleague Jennifer, who'd always greeted her with a warm smile and a "Good morning, Maya," now stared at her computer screen like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. Maya walked to her desk, each step feeling like she was wading through deep water. She could feel their eyes on her back. Could hear the whispers starting up again as soon as she passed. That's her. I can't believe she came back. The nerve. She sat down and opened her laptop, trying to focus on work. Trying to pretend everything was normal. But her hands were shaking so badly she could barely type. Maya. The voice came from behind her, firm and uncomfortable. Can I see you in my office? Mr. Graham. Her boss. The man who'd promoted her just 2 days ago. She followed him into his office, noticing how he left the door open. How he positioned himself closer to the exit than to her. Like she was dangerous. Maya, he began, folding his hands on his desk. You know I respect your work. You've done more for this department than anyone in the last 5 years. But? Maya said quietly, because she could hear it coming. He sighed, and for a moment, he looked genuinely pained. But there's been talk. About what happened at the party. About James. And until this is resolved. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I'm afraid we have to place you on suspension. Effective immediately. The words hit her like a punch to the gut. Suspension? Mr. Graham, I didn't do anything wrong. It's not about guilt or innocence, he said, though his tone suggested otherwise. It's about perception. And right now, the perception is damaging to the company. I'm sorry, Maya. I truly am. But I can't have you in the office until this investigation is complete. Maya sat there, frozen. She'd worked so hard for this. Sacrificed so much. And now it was being ripped away based on nothing but gossip and suspicion. How long, she managed to ask. I don't know, he admitted. As long as it takes. She left the building 20 minutes later with a cardboard box of her belongings. Personal photos. A coffee mug her team had given her last Christmas. The nameplate that had just been made for her door, Maya Chen, Vice President of Marketing. It felt like carrying her own coffin. That afternoon, Maya sat in her apartment surrounded by silence. She'd tried calling Rachel again. No answer. She'd tried her parents. They'd been cold, distant, saying they didn't want to get involved until things were clearer. Everyone had abandoned her. Everyone except the truth. Maya pulled out James's laptop. She'd managed to access it late last night, using the password he thought she didn't know, his mother's birthday, ironically. She'd been searching for hours, going through his emails, his files, looking for anything that might explain why he'd done this. And then, buried in a folder marked private, she found it. A separate email account. Not his work email or the personal one he used for family. This was something else entirely. Something secret. The account was under the name Jachen 2, and it was full of messages to someone identified only as VV. Maya's hands trembled as she clicked on the first email chain. After tonight, she'll be out of the way. Then we can start fresh. Just the two of us. I'll handle it. Trust me. Nobody will suspect a thing. She's so focused on her career, she won't even see it coming. Maya's vision blurred. She scrolled faster, her breath coming in short gasps. There were bank transfers. Thousands of dollars sent to an account she didn't recognize. Receipts for a hotel she'd never been to. Photos of James with a woman Maya had never seen before, beautiful, young, with dark hair and a smile that looked like victory. And then she found the notes. Detailed, meticulous notes about her schedule. Her routines. The promotion party. Even which drink she'd ordered at the last office celebration. She always orders champagne at events, one note read. Easy to slip something in while she's distracted. Maya's stomach turned. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't anger or a moment of madness. This was planned. Calculated. Premeditated. She kept clicking, kept reading, and then she found something that made her blood run cold. An audio file. Dated 3 days before the party. Her hand hovered over the play button. Part of her didn't want to know. Didn't want to hear whatever was on that recording. But she needed to know. She needed proof. She clicked play. James's voice filled the quiet apartment, clear and unmistakable. She won't see it coming. I'll slip it into her glass at the party. Make her look like the jealous wife who finally snapped. The police will eat it up. They always believe the husband. Another voice, a woman's, soft and conspiratorial. What about the investigation? By the time they finish with her, Vanessa and I will be long gone. New city. New life. And I'll finally be free of her pathetic clingy neediness. Laughter. They were both laughing. You're sure this will work? Trust me. Nobody will suspect us. Everyone knows Maya's been under stress. Working too hard. I've been planting the seeds for months, telling people she's been acting strange, jealous. When she goes down for this, it'll make perfect sense. Maya pressed stop, her whole body shaking. Vanessa. Vivi. His mistress. They'd planned this together. Not just to kill her, but to frame her. To destroy her reputation, her career, her life. And they'd almost succeeded. For a long moment, Maya just sat there, staring at the laptop screen. Tears ran down her face, but she barely noticed them. All she could think about was how close she'd come. How if she hadn't seen him slip that powder into her glass, if she hadn't switched them at the last second, she'd be dead right now. And everyone would have believed she'd driven him to kill her. Then, slowly, something shifted inside her. The grief and shock began to harden into something else. Anger. Pure, burning, righteous anger. They'd tried to destroy her. They'd turned everyone against her. They'd made her doubt herself, made her feel small and worthless and disposable. But she wasn't any of those things. Maya wiped her eyes and saved the audio file to her phone. Then she backed up everything, every email, every photo, every damning piece of evidence, to 3 different places. The cloud. A USB drive. Her personal email. She wasn't going to let them win. Not now. Not ever. The next blow came 2 days later. Maya was coming home from the grocery store, her arms full of bags she could barely afford now that she was suspended without pay, when a sleek black Mercedes pulled up to her building. The door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was stunning. Mid-20s, with glossy dark hair and perfect makeup. She wore a designer dress that probably cost more than Maya's rent and carried herself with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. Their eyes met, and the woman smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Maya Chen," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "I've been wanting to meet you." Maya's arms tightened around her grocery bags. "Who are you?" "Vanessa Sterling." The woman extended her hand, but Maya didn't take it. "Though I suppose you might know me better as VV." The grocery bags nearly slipped from Maya's hands. This was her. James's mistress. The woman he'd planned to run away with after Maya was dead. "What do you want?" Maya's voice came out steadier than she felt. Vanessa's smile widened. "I just thought you should know the truth. That James never loved you. You were only ever, practice. A stepping stone. He told me that himself." Each word was designed to hurt, and they did. But Maya had heard worse from James himself. She'd survived worse. "Is that all?" Maya said quietly. "Not quite." Vanessa's hand moved to rest on her stomach, the gesture deliberate and pointed. "I'm pregnant. With James's baby. So even if you somehow manage to hold on to him, it doesn't matter. He belongs to me now. To us." For a moment, Maya couldn't breathe. The betrayal was so complete, so total, that it felt like drowning. But then she thought of the recording. Of James's voice admitting everything. Of the evidence sitting safely backed up in multiple places. "Congratulations," Maya said, her voice hollow. "I hope you'll be very happy together." Vanessa looked surprised, like she'd expected tears or anger or a scene. When she didn't get it, her smile faltered slightly. "You should let him go," she said, her tone harder now. "Make it easy on yourself. Because one way or another, you're going to lose." She got back in her Mercedes and drove away, leaving Maya standing on the sidewalk with her groceries and her grief and her slowly building resolve. That night, Maya made a decision. She couldn't hide anymore. Couldn't wait for the truth to reveal itself. She had to force it into the light. And she knew exactly how to do it. The invitation arrived 3 days later, delivered by courier in a thick cream-colored envelope. "Patricia Chen requests your presence at a family gathering. Sunday, 7 p.m. Attendance is expected." Maya stared at the formal script, her heart pounding. She knew what this was. Patricia was staging a trial. She was gathering the family, their friends, everyone who mattered in the Chen social circle, to publicly denounce Maya. To cast her out once and for all. It should have terrified her. Instead, Maya smiled. Because Patricia had just given her exactly what she needed, an audience. She spent the next 3 days preparing. She had the recording transferred to her phone, tested the speaker to make sure everyone would be able to hear it clearly. She practiced what she would say, how she would stand, where she would position herself for maximum impact. She wasn't going to be a victim anymore. She was going to be a force of nature. Sunday evening, Maya dressed carefully. She chose a simple black dress, elegant but not flashy. She wanted them to see her face clearly when the truth came out. She wore her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked calm, composed, unbreakable. She looked like someone who had nothing to hide. The Chen estate was exactly as she remembered, massive, elegant, cold. It sprawled across 3 acres in the wealthy suburb of Greenwich, Connecticut, all stone and glass and money. Maya walked up the steps alone. The door opened before she could knock. Patricia stood there, dressed in silk and pearls, her face arranged in an expression of false sympathy that didn't reach her eyes. "Maya," she said, her voice carrying to the people gathered in the grand living room behind her. "How brave of you to come." Maya stepped inside, and every eye in the room turned to her. There had to be at least 40 people there. Family members. James's business partners. Society friends. Even some people from her own office. Had Patricia invited them? The entire gathering looked like a jury waiting to deliver a verdict. And there, in the center of it all, sat James. He was in a wheelchair, a blanket draped over his legs. He looked pale, weak, every inch the victim. When he saw Maya, his lips curved into a small, cruel smile. He thought he'd already won. "Thank you all for coming," Patricia said, her voice ringing through the room. "I know this is difficult, but I thought it was important that we address what happened. As a family. As a community." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. My son nearly died, Patricia continued, her hand resting on James's shoulder. Poisoned at his own wife's celebration. And while the police continue their investigation, I think we all deserve to hear the truth. She turned to Maya, her eyes hard. Don't we, dear? Every face in the room was turned toward her now, waiting. Judging. Maya took a breath. This was it. Her moment. You're right, she said clearly. We all deserve the truth. She pulled out her phone. What is she doing? Someone whispered. The truth, Maya continued, her voice steady, is that someone did try to commit murder that night. Someone did slip poison into a glass of champagne. Someone did plan to kill their spouse and frame them for their own death. James's smile faded slightly. Patricia's eyes narrowed. But it wasn't me. Maya tapped her phone screen, and James's voice filled the grand living room, loud and undeniable. She won't see it coming. I'll slip it into her glass at the party. Make her look like the jealous wife who finally snapped. The police will eat it up. Gasps erupted throughout the room. People turned to each other, shocked, confused. Maya let it play. Every damning word. Every casual joke about her death. Every detail of the plan he and Vanessa had made. By the time they finish with her, Vanessa and I will be long gone. The room exploded into chaos. Voices rose. People stood up from their seats. Patricia's face had gone white as snow. That's fake. James shouted from his wheelchair. She edited it. She's lying. Am I? Maya's voice cut through the noise. She looked directly at him, and for the first time in years, she saw fear in his eyes. Then, from the back of the room, a woman's voice rang out. No. She's not. Everyone turned. Vanessa Sterling stood in the doorway, her face flushed with anger and tears. She looked at James with pure hatred. Tell them, she demanded. Tell them the truth, James. Vanessa, shut up. No. She stormed into the room, and Maya saw that she'd been crying. Her perfect makeup was smeared, her designer dress wrinkled. I'm done protecting you. You promised me everything. You said we'd be together. You said once she was gone, we'd start fresh. She turned to the stunned crowd. He planned all of it. The poison. The timing. Making her look guilty. He was going to let his own wife go to prison for attempted murder while we ran away together. You're crazy, James hissed. You're just a jealous. I'm pregnant. Vanessa screamed. I'm pregnant with your child, and you were going to abandon me too. I heard you on the phone yesterday, planning to pin everything on me now that your plan failed. The room fell into stunned silence. Patricia's hand slowly lifted from her son's shoulder. She stared down at him like she was seeing him for the first time. Daniel, she whispered. Tell me this isn't true. But James couldn't speak. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. The lies had finally caught up with him. Maya stepped forward, her voice clear and steady. He tried to kill me, she said. He planned it for months. He wanted my life insurance. He wanted to be free to be with his mistress. And he was willing to let me die, or let me rot in prison, to get what he wanted. She looked around the room, making eye contact with each person who had judged her, who had whispered about her, who had believed she was capable of murder. You all thought I was the monster, she said quietly. But I was just the victim who refused to die. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, from the doorway, a new voice spoke up. James Chen? Two police officers stood at the entrance, badges gleaming. You're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. The room erupted again. People were shouting, crying, trying to get their phones out to record what was happening. James tried to stand from his wheelchair, but the officers were already moving toward him. This is insane, he shouted. She's framing me. You can't. But they could. And they did. As they read him his rights and placed handcuffs on his wrists, James's eyes found Maya's across the room. For years, he'd made her feel small. Worthless. Like she was nothing without him. But standing there, watching him being led away in handcuffs, Maya finally understood something. She had never been nothing. She had been surviving. And now, finally, she was free. 3 months later, Maya Chen stood in front of the mirror in her new apartment. It was smaller than the one she'd shared with James, but it was hers. Every piece of furniture, every picture on the wall, every choice, all hers. The divorce had been finalized quickly once the criminal charges were filed. James was facing 10 to 15 years for attempted murder. Vanessa had turned state's witness in exchange for a lighter sentence. Patricia had retreated from public life entirely, the shame too much for her proud family name to bear. And Maya? Maya had gotten her job back. More than that, she'd gotten a promotion. Regional vice president now. Her own team. Her own office with windows overlooking Central Park. But more important than any of that, she'd gotten herself back. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Lunch today? I'm sorry it took me so long to believe you. I want to make it right. Maya smiled and typed back, I'll be there. Forgiveness would take time. Trust would have to be rebuilt. But she was willing to try. Because Maya had learned something important through all of this. The people who truly loved you believed in you, even when the evidence looked bad. Even when the world said you were guilty. And the people who didn't? They weren't worth keeping in your life anyway. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. She had a full day ahead, a pitch meeting at 10, lunch with Rachel, and dinner with some colleagues who had reached out to apologize and reconnect. Her life was full again. But this time, it was full of people who actually cared about her. Full of work that challenged and fulfilled her. Full of possibilities instead of limitations. As she locked her apartment door behind her, Maya whispered the words she'd been saving for this moment. James, you tried to poison my crown. But all you did was make me stronger. The sun was shining as she stepped out onto the street. The city hummed with life and possibility. And for the first time in years, Maya Chen wasn't just surviving. She was thriving. Remember, envy consumes the envious long before it touches the innocent. Truth always unmasks betrayal. And what is built on lies will always collapse under the weight of reality. Thank you for being part of this journey. If this story touched you, please subscribe and share where you're watching from in.